continually been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language throughout the land, May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. That is the word of the Lord, and that is Daniel chapter 6. Now, we have been looking at the story of the Babylonian captivity, and in particular, we started with the letter to the exiles in Babylon in Jeremiah chapter 29, and then from there we started looking at the life of the exiles in Babylon, particularly Daniel and his friends. And last week we were looking at the issue of the change of the kingdom, the fall of the kingdom of Babylon. Now, Babylon has fallen, and in its place, a new kingdom has come in, the Medo-Persian kingdom. Remember, and I hope that I am not confusing you too much with this history. Remember, we had the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar. That is the Babylonian kingdom. And that is the kingdom that took the Jews from Jerusalem to Babylon. And then remember that King Nebuchadnezzar saw a vision in which there was a big statue that had a head of gold, and then the chest and the arms were silver. And then there was bronze, and then there was iron. Now, remember that it was Daniel who interpreted this dream, and the interpretation was that Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was the head of gold. And after his kingdom, after him, another kingdom was going to rise up, and that kingdom would be less, but it would be a twin kingdom. Now, the dream or the vision has come to pass. So last week, we witnessed the fall of the Babylonian kingdom, where the grandson of King Nebuchadnezzar, the King Belshazzar, saw a finger writing on the wall, Mene, Mene, Tekel. And that very night, he was killed. And so, the Babylonian kingdom turned to the Medo-Persian kingdom. The Medes and the Persians could not, each on their own, were not able to overpower the Babylonian kingdom. So what they did is that they came together in a coalition. And that is how they were able to overthrow the kingdom of Babylon. Now, Medo-Persia is now the new kid on the block. And the king is called Darius. So, in chapter 6, we see how the king now is establishing his kingdom. How does he do it? He appoints people so that they can help him to rule. Among the people who have been appointed is Daniel. So one of the things that we see here is Daniel has lived through King Nebuchadnezzar. He has lived through King Belshazzar. And now he is living through the King Darius. He has seen them all. And one thing that has happened is that throughout all those reigns, Daniel has seen the faithfulness of God. And Daniel has gone through crisis after crisis after crisis. And so today's theme is about trusting God and seeing his victory in our hour of crisis. So what happened here is that Daniel had 3 moments of crisis, which we are going to be looking at briefly. Number 1, there was work crisis. When he was appointed to be one of the men in charge of running the affairs of the kingdom, one thing that comes out is that he was a man of great integrity. And having been a man of great integrity, the people around him would have wanted to corrupt him. But he proved himself incorruptible. And it is one of the greatest lessons that we can learn today, whereby we see people who are in public service all being corrupt. And it is very difficult to find people who are not corrupt in the public service. And this is a lesson to those people who have been given the responsibility of running public affairs, to know that it is possible to run public affairs without engaging in corruption. But it is also equally important to know that issues of corruption have not started with the Jubilee government. Because today we are talking about corruption in government, and although the government of the day is the incidences of corruption that we have continued to witness have surpassed in dollar value all the other corruptions of the governments that have passed, yet it is important to know that corruption has not started with the government of the day. Even during Daniel's time, corruption in government was still there. And so, what is the lesson? The lesson is that there will be people who will want to corrupt you. But it is a choice that you must make, because Daniel made a choice to uphold integrity and honesty in his work. And this is not just about those people who are in the public service. even people in the private sector, we are called upon to be men and women of integrity. And we have the example of Daniel for our encouragement, that we can be men and women of integrity even when all around us are corrupt. And so the first crisis that Daniel had to deal with was the crisis at the workplace. The people around him needed him to be corrupt, but he stood his ground. He stood by his principles. Although he was in a foreign land, he still stood by his principles, and he offered the best service that he knew how. And so, even during this time, we are still called upon to be men and women of integrity. And one thing that I can assure you is that when you decide that you are going to be a person of integrity, there will be moments of temptation. You are going to be tempted to compromise. Daniel was tempted to compromise, but he refused to compromise.